grace and trust, with the willingness to pursue truth. That's in a way kind of what comes behind this curiosity. And from that space, that's where meaningful movement comes in. Mm-hmm. That's where intentional action comes in, because it's no longer my reflex to just instinctively and defensively respond, but it's to say, I do have choices.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here again with a dear friend. And my dear friend here is Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca.
Hello.
Oh, this is so exciting. I want to see all those cheers and waves and all of that, like almost like a wave. Hey, we're here together. This is so cool.
Yes.
You are tuned into another episode of Mind of the Week. And this is the show where I bring you people who are dear to me, who inspired me, who I adore, whose stories are worth telling, and who I have been in conversation with, and they know so much stuff and they want to share their insights. And I want to bring their insights to you so that they spark something inside of you and you go, that's it. I want to take that away. And so I'm here to present you Rebecca Roberts. Hi. And we're going to talk about mindset. And specifically the mindset, the curious mind, and how that is interesting and important. And we're going to look at it from different angles. And I'm fascinated. And let me just tell you, Rebecca is fascinating to me. When we first met, we met a year ago at a speaking academy event in Oslo. And we spent long hours together because we had daylight until almost 2:00 at night. And that was a fantastic event with Eric and lots of other wonderful people who we met there. So sharing that time together was phenomenal. And in that time, I noticed straight away how Rebecca is fascinating me with her words. And her words she uses are so eloquently put together that they somehow do stuff to me. Like when you talk, they're like, oh yeah, keep talking, I get it. So and you do this so magically in other videos which you produce, and people can see that on YouTube and on your page. So I would love people to go onto your page, RebeccaRoberts.com, and you're also on YouTube. What's your name on YouTube?
It's also Rebecca Roberts.
Amazing. Yep. Well, Rebecca, you are an architect, aren't you? And you are have turned that around into not creating buildings outside, but basically creating the inside new of people, and you're helping that, and you are the facilitator of change for people as a coach and a speaker and a workshop facilitator, and with courses and programs. You call yourself a spacemaker, and I love that.
For me, that's really what it's about, though, because we often work from our own experiences, right? And that was one of my biggest ones. I was so used to hearing these amazing clients that I was working with, and they really wanted deep desire for like cultural change in their companies. But they wanted us as interior architects to create a space that changed their culture. And I would always have this little speech ready that said, okay, we can create the most amazing space, but that can only facilitate your culture. That has to happen. Culture happens on an individual level. And I realized again and again, actually, as I was giving this repetitive, beautiful, inspirational talk, that yes, I was doing exactly the same thing. I had curated this amazing world around me. I had the right partner. I had the right location. I was traveling all over the world. I was living somewhere, in another country. I had a job that was super exciting. And yet all of that was innocent and perfect. but I still didn't have what I wanted to feel on the inside. And I was looking and questioning everything around me instead of that spark of, yeah, right, this is where our culture is created, first inside of us. And that comes with a mindset that's willing to be curious, willing to be open, willing to be challenged, and actually willing to be rebellious against the belief systems that we have well established for so much of our lives from childhood up. So yeah.
Absolutely, I can hear you on that. And there is a lot what we're gonna look at in what you just said. So also when you mentioned companies, when you went into create their spaces, it's the culture of the person, the culture of the company, and then that becomes a belief set and a given set of rules which you as an employee or a member of staff just accept for being there. And that is, I guess, the opposite of curiosity, because you're not there to change that, you're there to accept it and do your work in that space. And
well, at least that's what it's been.
Yeah.
So for a long time.
So have you had those experiences where you spoke to companies where the like leaders or bosses would want to change, and how did that make you realize that it's everyone's individuality and everyone's personality which you need to take a look at? How did that work, and how did you manage to change that? Or was that a moment when you said, I actually don't only want to do that, I want to be a coach for single people, like individuals?
Yes. It's so interesting because it's all intertwined. Maybe a good example is when at first the idea of open space working came about.
Yeah.
With the idea of Hotdesking, that nobody has their dedicated space, but that maybe we change desks. And it was at first this idea, this is going to solve all of the problems. It's going to free up real estate. It's going to do all of these different things. It's going to save us money, save us space. It's the wonder drug.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of management that said, oh my gosh, this is our answer, because we're spending so much on the spaces and we're spending so much on the resources. We should be able to free up more of that to be working with the clients. And the thought, I believe, truly is innocent in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. In some cases, maybe it really was, how do we save money? How do we chop back spaces and push our people a little bit more into a corner so that get them more condensed? But then the realization of, and it's what we see everywhere, one size fits all never works. Mm-hmm. And it actually, and this is where curiosity is not enough by itself, but it's the catalyst.
Okay.
Because the curiosity of how can we change the way that we work? Yes, we may, like take example of a larger company, we may have certain departments that would work super well for Hotdesking. Let's say that you've got a group that they're sales guys and gals, and they are 75% on the road. Do each one of them need their own desk in the office when almost all of their work is happening somewhere else? Or maybe is there an alternative solution? Maybe for that group, it was perfect solution. But for the law group inside of the company, the ones that are needing to constantly spend solo time reviewing documents, they have still a lot of paperwork, maybe they haven't gone to paperless. Those guys, the idea of Hotdesking, doesn't work. But the thing is, it takes time, because then you have to look at people on an individual human level. And this takes time. And a lot of times it's difficult for a company to dedicate that time to say, we're dedicating time and resources to our human assets that we have inside of this company to try and figure out how to make them work most comfortably, most efficiently, most productively, but also for them to feel safe, for them to feel heard, for them, all of these different things. And when you go to that level, it takes time, but it also requires action. Yes. So just being curious, because I've had this before with certain companies. We did all sorts of interviews and workshops with the different employees, but then it came down to it, and at the final moment it really was about the budget, and we learned all of this stuff that could be implemented, but it just wasn't an option because of the budget. And so then understandably that's frustrating as an employee, because you've had the space to speak up and you're not being heard. And so this is really about the curiosity of being willing to ask those questions, but knowing that action is tied to it.
Yeah. And action from everyone.
Just be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being curious is the kind of platform and the catalyst, as you say, for like just looking out. And, you know, I like to speak a lot about inspiration, and we have these 70,000 thoughts a day, and they're 95% the same than yesterday. And this is kind of, oh my God, really? It's like same old over again. So inspiration is coming in how I see it, as a new thought, something which you allow yourself to come in. So if you have this curiosity mindset, you're kind of the sponge to allow new inspiration to come in. So it's both, isn't it? So you've got to have this curious mindset to actually start opening up, and yes, what you said, creating space for new thoughts and new things coming in, and then taking action on them. And you talk about meaningful action, of course, so that it transports you forward for whatever you are compelled to do. And this could be on a corporate level, this could be on a private level, like personal, family, friendships, relationships, anything really, where this curious mindset then is just so valuable. And you facilitate that with coaching and workshops. And so I wonder, what have you learned then as well from people where you explain that to them? Do you find that people are open to that, or are they? What I would like to know is what you learned from people, how they are bringing themselves to see you and to understand, now I am curious, so what can you tell me about this, and how do I now make this meaningful and create new things from that perspective, and how do I move forward and not fall back into old tracks?
So I work a lot with pattern interruption, which is to see, like, to first give the space to observe, I find myself stuck doing this, which then to identify, okay, so what is the pattern that's actually happening? So for example, let's say I continuously am getting into a disagreement with my partner, or whatever it might be, or I'm having struggles with my roommate, or my boss doesn't understand me. And it's to look at that as judgment-free as possible first, also for ourselves, because that's often, that's my crux. Very often I find whenever I'm working with my coaches, I tend to have a lot of ideas about how the other person could change.
Oh yeah, that's
and then he does this, and then this is ridiculous whenever this happens. And my coaches know me well enough by now that they're like, that's a lot of the other person. What's with you? I'm like, damn. So a lot of the curiosity comes from a willingness for grace on both sides. First, grace on the other side to say, like, let's give an example of a partner. My partner and I keep getting in fights and he just doesn't understand me, and bah. And then sometimes the first question will be, well, do you believe that he cares for you? Yeah, I mean, he loves me, I know. Okay, so if you believe that he truly loves you, do you believe that he's truly trying to instigate this? Yes. Okay, so why? Why would he be trying to stir up trouble in this case? Well, I never thought it. Okay, maybe it's because he's bored. Maybe, maybe we've gotten into some routines, and actually when we have an argument, it gives some spice. And maybe, that's interesting. I never thought about that. And then it's to flip it around. Well, so why do you play into it? Because an argument takes two. Well, because he's so insufferable. Well, okay. And so there are some times where in that discussion, we come to realizations about ourselves that suck. Like that really are not fun to see, to go, wow, in that case, I was actually really looking to hurt him. Because I realize actually right now that I was so hurt by this that I can't let that go because I haven't allowed myself to let it go. And so therefore I keep wanting, whoa. And that's the place where the curiosity then really has to kick in. Mm-hmm. But it has to be bolstered by a massive amount of trust and a massive amount of grace. Grace and trust with the willingness to pursue truth. That's in a way kind of what comes behind this curiosity, because when those are the goal, then you're able to give yourself some grace when you see the nasty bits that you don't really want to see, to then say, okay, how do I change this and how do I move forward? Instead of saying, oh, it's too uncomfortable to see that. Nope, I'm fine. We just fight. That's fine. Because we do that sometimes. Sometimes we see, and we're seeing it right now in the world. It takes some courage and it takes the willingness to step into discomfort to make some big changes. And a lot of times it takes some, for me, the willingness to see some really uncomfortable truths about myself.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Again, the way you described it, I'm so pleased you did that from an entrepreneurial perspective and company, and now bringing it into a relationship example, because there is all of that in between where we bounce in relationship and in conversations with others. And you know, these big words like curiosity, mindset, and innovation and meaningful action, they're brilliant words, but how do they actually work in the real world? And I'm glad we actually take it to that level and not just speak, you know, about the words. So it's where the action really takes place is when it sucks, and when it's just ugh, and you don't know what to do about it, and you're like, okay, where is my curious mindset? And it's like, I don't know. And it's like you search inside and you go, can't find it. And so we want to make this practical, isn't it? So we want to know kind of for ourselves of how can I get out of this stuckness? How can I get out of this pattern which I can see happening? And of course, that takes a lot of awareness to do that ourselves. And as you mentioned, coaches, they are usually a good mirror, which they put up and go, just look at that again, please. And so it takes some, you know, practice and awareness to actually reflect on ourselves. But I reckon the more we have this conversation, these kind of conversations with ourselves, and intellectualize first of what's going on, then the awareness level is higher, and we maybe fall into a conversation and go, huh, I'm holding on to that stuck belief, which I know is not helping me. Maybe it is a little bit right now where I'm in that fight with my whatever child partner, co-worker, and it helps me feel good and my ego is bolstered, but in the long term it actually tightens. And this is how, you know, your word Spacemaker is so relevant for me, because when we feel we are going into an argument, or we are not really flexible with our mind thinking, and it's about us, you know, what you mentioned, I can see that what other people need to do, but if it's on us, it feels like, sometimes it feels really tight. And so I think that could be one trigger for people to actually go, oh, okay, if it feels like that and you tighten your fist and you go, I'm ready to fight, then space is needed. Space is needed. So to allow space to come in, you could, I mean, I'm just, you know, maybe you can add to that, but I'm just assuming that breathing is something which is important in that time. So breathe and take space inside so that you allow your mind to just, you know, get some air. I mean, it's always good for us to
absolutely
go for a walk and create space internally. So maybe we start talking about that as well, where how can we kickstart us when we have that awareness? So how do we get there?
Yes. I mean, the biggest thing is one step at a time. The first thing is to recognize that you're triggered,
Yeah.
right? To recognize that there is, exactly like you described and you said it so beautifully, this tightness. The body is one of our best allies in this, because some people it shows up as a heartbeat. For some, it shows up as like a twisting in the belly. For me, it's one of those things that I feel my heart start to move. And because I used to hold back what I would say so much, I feel right here tighten, because it's literally my body is reflecting what was happening in my mind. In my mind, I was saying, I can't say that, I can't say that, that's too mean or it's too direct. And so literally these muscles tighten to constrict my voice. So the first thing is that awareness.
I feel like okay.
The first thing is that awareness, like you said, to recognize the trigger. The second, it's often counterintuitive, but to create space somehow. So, for example, if you're in a discussion with your partner and you realize, wow, this is about to go down a road where I know how this goes, to go, time out, I'm not being disrespectful, but right now I see that this is about, on my side, I'm about to go down a path that I'm going to potentially say things that I don't want to say, to be hurtful, to be defensive, and I don't want to approach this subject with that kind of energy. So I'm going to take a walk. Maybe we take a walk together in silence, or maybe you just go that way and I go this way, and we reconvene when we have some calmness. If that happens inside of a meeting, it's not always possible to do that. Sometimes it's just taking a few breaths. I've told this to clients many times. There have been plenty of times where I've said, I need to go to the restroom. And I go to the toilets and I just sit on a toilet for 2 minutes to go, okay, you see what's happening inside of yourself. And it's really important, because what happens sometimes when we think we're creating space, we're trying to develop an argument. Right? We're thinking, he said this, and then, you know what? Oh, I'm going to bring back up that time 3 summers ago when this happened. That is not space making. To be really clear, the first thing is to look at what's happening inside of ourselves.
Yeah.
So that space is not for developing my argument so that I come back better and like with more ammunition and bigger guns. Exactly. It is what is, and you said it so beautifully, what is my long-term goal? Because yes, my short-term goal in this meeting might be to make my colleague look like an idiot because he's been rude and mean, or she's been stealing my ideas, or whatever it might be. But my long-term is not that. My long-term is for me to handle myself with grace and truth, to be kind, but not nice. So kindness also can be very uncomfortable, because maybe sometimes kindness is to have a discussion with a colleague that says, you know what, it feels like you've been stealing the credit for all of the work that we've been doing. I don't hear a lot of we's when you speak. I hear a lot of I's, and that hurts. And that sucks to say, but it's kind. That is kindness, because it is open, truthful, honest communication. But in those places, that's it. And it's to determine what makes the most sense. Maybe for some people, once you see that trigger, it's to go for a walk around the block. Maybe you can't do that. Maybe you step outside on your balcony and you go, I just need a couple of minutes. Maybe for some, it's stretching. You know, some who are highly connected to their bodies, it's, okay, you know, I'm gonna do this. For some, maybe it's meditation. Whatever that is, to allow yourself in whatever that moment is to create some distance, because that's what space making is. It's, I'm not, like, the topic is not right here in front of my face anymore. It's to go, okay, so I see my perspective, I can see their perspective, I can see their perspective. I have a bigger picture now. And from that space, that's where meaningful movement comes in.
Mhm.
That's where intentional action comes in, because it's no longer my reflex to just instinctively and defensively respond, but it's to say, I do have choices. Yeah.
And we always have choices when we allow us to see them. I mean, I'm a big believer in that, and it's powerful to have that mindset to know what are my choices, even to ask, like, when we ask the gratitude question and we say, what am I grateful for? We find things. So, and when we look out for what are my choices, then you are already starting to look for them. And then when we have the focus out for other things, then we allow our eyes to see more. And so it's just fascinating so much to me, because we run on beliefs, and the beliefs are so ingrained that they create the thoughts and the feelings, and we live with them since our childhood. And then however old we become, we get faced with that confrontation of
Yes.
either continuing to have that, hold on to that belief, or adopt a new one. And it's okay to adopt a new belief, because sometimes the knowledge has changed, or actually facts have changed. I mean, over centuries, and all of a sudden facts have changed, and we had to come up with, okay, the world is not flat. It's a fact, it's round. Okay, I got to believe this now. So, and then in terms of, you know, food, or cultures, or gender, and all these things, we once we allow ourselves to rattle and shake these beliefs, oh, that's phenomenal. I love that, when to have even that conversation, because it takes courage then to allow ourselves to question the beliefs. And of course, there is a lot going on in the world right now where this is relevant, and in politics and any kind of conversation where, I'm coming from the conversation of beliefs. We are human beings. We have this thing between our ears which we can use, and we can choose, and we have choice. That's, going back to, we have a choice of what do you want to believe. And I certainly um, want to bring that message out to hopefully a lot of young adults, that they are responsible. They are adults as soon as they turn 18 here in Europe, or 21, or whatever number you pick there. But they become responsible adults when they start looking at themselves and question what's going on, and then owning that belief rather than pointing and blaming. And I do love it when it comes an internal reflection and go, okay, I don't know what I believe. That's also a good starting point.
Totally. I don't know is a great jumping off point, because at least that's the acknowledgement there's an openness to explore. The idea I know is a shut door. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that, not everyone needs to know everything about everything they open the newspaper and have an opinion about. I mean, you can have an opinion, but I want to encourage as many people to actually base their words on something they actually believe. And once they voice their opinion, that it's based on what truly sits within them. And if they don't have like an educated opinion, that they would say, I don't know yet, and
Yes.
I'm not interested yet, or I will look into it. And what is your opinion? So, I want the beliefs to be present for everyone, so that they are their new newspaper,
Yes.
and that they open it and go, oh yeah, I believe that too. It's easy for me if I open the sports section.
Yeah.
And I go, oh yeah, I believe that too. He's a good runner. I love that. And he's jumping high. And yeah, that's facts. And he's winning and he's losing. And if I open other pages in the newspaper, I go, I actually don't really know. Because
Yeah.
is he saying the truth? Do I believe that? What do I believe about that? Oh, and then it becomes a lot. And then that's when people start to put their opinion on stuff, and based on their beliefs, which have been just put them there into this situation, and who knows what's right and wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. And you just touched on so many really valuable things, because there is this like deep need for self-trust, meaning that when I hear a piece of information, I trust myself to be able to either feel like, yes, that resonates with me, no, it doesn't, or I don't know. But there are so many of us that are struggling with that piece of trust. So it's then it becomes helpful to be more rigid, because then I can just say no. That person is from that political party, I don't listen to them. That person is from that particular culture, nope, I don't listen to them. And this is what is behind curiosity, is knowing that simply because I open my ears and my heart and my mind to listen to you does not mean I agree with you. But then it's really important that I'm genuinely listening, that I'm not putting on the show of, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, but, always with the but.
Mm-hmm.
And this is with the, what happens when we change that. We did this exercise during our program that was, what happens if you exchange but with and.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does is it keeps the dialogue moving. And so, yes, we will absolutely have diversity of opinions, diversity of beliefs, because so much of this stuff is individual. But the question is, are we truly opening our hearts and minds and ears to listen with a curious base? Or are we having this feeling, like, I can remember I grew up with that feeling. If I listen to this, no, that's a bad book. If I listen to that, then I stand the risk of being indoctrinated. Well, that's someone who doesn't trust themselves,
Yep.
right? Because if I believe that just reading a couple of words on a page are going to completely destroy my belief system, maybe I need to look at my belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not really mine, So then, and that's what curiosity does, but that's why it requires that trust. The trust of, I trust myself, I trust my intuition, I trust these things to be able to, at a minimum, say, ooh, something feels off.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, man, I don't know why, and that terrifies me, but that resonates.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, again, this is, and we find that in open conversations, isn't it? So we find that when we have started a conversation and it's not just the superficial level, and once we hear someone out and actually listen to what they're saying, so it takes a good amount of ingredients to come to a conversation which is filled with, one person being curious, the other person being curious, and then from there, and declutter all these old beliefs and come to a new agreement, and from there grow together or grow organically at something new. So it's, again, these could be just two people, and that is already an enterprise. It's like, there can so much can happen in that, so much conflict but so much love. So one person needs to trust themselves in order to trust the next person who's also trusting themselves. And if we then bring more people together, you can just see how this can, be beautiful as a movement when it's laid out on then meaningful actions. But you can also see how that brings up conflict and just erupts quickly. So it's fascinating how how we as humans go through life with these things inside of us which are not organs, which you can't take away. And if I would be an organ donor, it's and there's nothing where you go, oh, this belief, no, we don't need that belief anymore, we can take that away. And
Exactly.
so I would like to talk a little bit about innovation as well, because so innovation again is like based on the curious mindset. If we can't just bring something new into the world, if we think we're closed off, we just, Elon Musk wouldn't be going and having thoughts of going to Mars if he wouldn't allow himself to have a curious mindset. So is that a trait you see in people who, like, is that just a given? I guess it's a given that people need to be curious in order to be innovative, and so what would you like to say about that, like the innovation which is happening so rapidly around the world right now in terms of technology and maybe other things too?
I would say this is one of those places where I believe you can't have innovation without curiosity, because there has to be a spark that gets you to look in a direction where previously nobody has looked, or nobody has looked and taken action. And that's more what I find, because innovation, I heard this definition once that I loved, is curiosity with action.
Mm-hmm.
Because curiosity alone, like we said, not enough. Innovation is that. But I've been reading a lot about innovation lately, and what I see, and I see it in myself as well, is the desire for sexy innovation. Like, oh my gosh, and look at this technology, it's amazing. How?
Mm-hmm.
But then innovation is to continue on when it gets messy.
Mm-hmm.
And when nobody's looking anymore, and when it's not the new thing. I saw this video, or I read this article the other day that was talking about virtual reality. And it was such a great example, I thought, because it was, yeah, virtual reality, a number of years ago was, oh my gosh, and isn't this the most amazing thing? And right now, we're not hearing so much. We hear about VR, but we hear it much calmer. And it was one of the guys who's like one of the backbones of creating the virtual reality movement. He was saying, yeah, now is when the work really begins, because it's no longer about the things that you show off at the big convention centers that are the wow, that was so cool, and then I leave it. But now it's, how do we really integrate this into life?
Mm-hmm.
What are the places that it's really valuable, for example, for doctors who can't reach certain remote areas? Is there the possibility of bringing certain equipment that allows them to do virtual reality surgeries? And this is not, it's amazing, but this is not the sexy stuff. But it's continuing to move when it gets really messy, when it gets uncomfortable, when it's then, okay, innovation then also transitions to, if we want to keep this going, it's also about then creating processes around it. So it's taking the free flowing, if you will, the feminine, wild chaos and exploration, and bringing the masculine structure to it, so that, yeah, this one doctor can do it, but he can also then teach 1,000 other doctors to do it in this case.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that's consistent and takes care of the patient. And so for me, that's what I see when it comes to innovation, is that, yeah, a lot of times there's this idea of, it looks beautiful and it looks nice at the beginning, and we have this beautiful vision of how it will be, but we really have to hold to that vision, because in the short term, just like us humans, when we go through transformation, it is often very messy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we get hung up in the mess, and oftentimes the discomfort and the shame, right? Shame is one of those big things that comes up with curiosity, because, oh, why didn't I know that? Or, oh gosh, I feel so foolish, that totally failed. Or, oh gosh, I can't believe I see this belief system inside of myself. Shame is an amazing blocker for all of this stuff. And that's where courage comes in. That's when the ability to take a step back from my identification of myself, the fact that I don't want to look foolish, the fact that I don't want to look silly. Children don't have that. Look how curiously and with so much wonder they explore the world, because they don't have this blockade of, oh my gosh, but I'm going to look like an idiot if I fall down again. They fall down again and again and again. And they go, okay, but it's worth it, right?
Yeah.
I see the benefits of this whole walking thing that people are doing.
Oh,
So
it's beautiful.
that's it.
It's
That's
beautiful.
the curiosity, the wonder, the resilience. There is no one key. There's looking at ourselves as a whole and saying, Am I willing to see what's there? Can I have a certain lightness about it? Can I laugh at myself when I go, wow, that's impressive. I can't believe I actually thought that. Ah. And then take another step.
Meaningful, forward,
Yes. Yes.
open with space. Oh,
Amen.
Rebecca, this was a wonderful conversation, and I took so much from this, and I hope the viewers, listeners, audience as well, because talking about this topic, it brought it to a different level, which I was hoping for, and it's fascinating. So I hope that everyone can take a lot from it, and it's practical to allow space to bring awareness and to live out your curiosity with trust and in yourself, and take meaningful actions forward to just move this world forward, really, because this is our part, isn't it? We have two hands, a mind, a body, and everyone can be powerful. And if we allow ourselves to be that, I mean, it takes beliefs to get us there. Not everyone wants that, but the person who wants it, take action, take those meaningful steps, and take the courage, and be encouraged, and reach out to people who you can buddy up with and help. I mean, you don't always need to go the mile on your own. You can be with other people and just wrap them into your inspirational booster and go forward. I just think when we do these things together, we're stronger. And I need to look at that myself, where I sometimes believe, oh, I need to do that myself in order to make it valuable, which is just belief. I mean, where does that come from? So, and so hopefully this conversation has sparked lots of new thoughts, new inspiration, and I'm so pleased that we shared that together. I've got two more questions, Rebecca. And
Yes.
the first question is, what does happiness mean to you?
I often find that I used to think of happiness as an emotion. And when I truly look at it, because it's very easy to ask, am I happy? Am I not? For me, happiness is a state of being. And it's fully inclusive of body, mind, spirit, body, mind, spirit. And it's embodying. It doesn't necessarily have to mean this, over the top, oh, I'm just bliss bombed out. But happiness is resting in this space with pure joy and ease.
Oh, nothing to add there. And so the other question is, what excites you at the moment?
Oh. What excites me is something that I'm calling conscious rebellion. And it's deep dive. So it's what I found is that I have a lot of curiosity, and I pride myself on this sometimes, right? So first, the recognition of, there's some identity connected to this. Oh yeah, she's the curiosity person. It's to really look at some of the deep things, and a willingness to ask, why do I truly believe this? Or why have I not allowed that into my realm of exploration in the past? And it is really, I'm finding more and more, it is about deep listening to other people. And before I establish a judgment of agree, don't agree, right, wrong, whatever, just sitting with it for a moment and asking, okay, this person truly believes that to be true. What's there? And checking in with myself. And so this really is, it's a rebellion against the old thoughts, meaning it's a willingness to ask those tough questions, but in some places that I have not been asking those tough questions. And to ask, like, yeah, I, as a coach and as a speaker, I spout off a lot of things that sound really pretty. How much am I living them? So it's really, I'm in very deep dive with this conscious rebellion against my old belief systems. Or I don't say against, it's not a war. It's conscious rebellion with them, you know, and it's an exploration, but it's deep dive.
Deep dive with an oxygen tank, or are you free diving?
Let's call it free diving. And sometimes, man, I am coming up gasping for breath when I see some things, but it's good. It's good. And I have a lot of accountability. This is where exactly what you were saying, connection, asking for support, asking for help. There are times when something really doesn't line up, but I feel like I see it so clearly. And that's when it's really helpful to have those friends and those trusted people around us that we go, I feel like I have a blind spot. Can you help me? And then to really be open to what's said. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And, you know, when they say you are the average of the 5 people you spend most of the time with, I somehow hope that these people who make up these rules and they judge me actually count you in as one of those 5s for me. So
Amen.
I would love that if that would happen. So
Same. I'm so grateful to have this space and time to play together and to explore and to get curious. And thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca. And whoever is watching, reach out to Rebecca if you've got questions, reach out to me if you want to know more, and make sure you like and love and subscribe this YouTube channel and share it widely so that this message gets sent out. All right, see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Ciao.